Ori has always been a game series I love and many adore. It's always had a space in my memory, never letting me forget it ever since I learned about it. I remember reading about Ori and the Blind Forest in Game Informer and how much I was interested in this game. I later found out it would come to Switch and was ecstatic. I read more about it online and discovered there was a second game, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I immediately checked to see if it was coming to Switch, and sadly, the director said they had no plan of it. A couple months later, I went down to Walmart to buy this game and I couldn't get over, and to my surprise, both games were right there next to each other. Without hesitation, I bought both games and the rest is history. While Ori isn't the most popular, it does have a very dedicated cult fan base. Not very many people know about these games, but the ones that do seem to love them to no end. Why do people love these games so much? Well, I think I have the answer. So come with me as we delve and uncover the magic of Ori. Before we reveal its magic, let me first get you acquainted with Ori. The game starts with the peace and serenity of Nibel, a forest full of beautiful scenery and vibrance. The harmony of the forest is broken by a heart-stomping roar of incredible thunder, and a storm breaks out. Heavy rain and lightning bombarding the forest breaks off a shining leaf of the spirit tree, the life breath of Nibel. Naru, a creature from Blackroot Burrows, watches as the leaf makes its ephemeral descent to the ground, where it bursts into a cloud of light and reveals a small light spirit named Ori. A weakened and exhausted Ori is taken into a loving embrace by Naru. Naru takes Ori in and raises them as her own child. Ori grows up collecting fruit from lush trees and building bridges over glistening creeks. As Ori makes its way back to the cave with arms full of fruit, they hear a roaring in the distance while the spirit tree calls out in its gleaming light. Ori stares in shock as Naru pulls Ori into the cave in fear of the tree's call. Later in the game, it is revealed that Kudo, an owl of massive size, stole the spirit tree's light, which caused a chain reaction of decay throughout Nibel. As the painstaking days slug along, Naru starts to grow weak. He then goes out to find fruit on a lone tree high in the canopy. Out of reach, Naru returns to the cave to rest. Ori then wakes up to get the fruit from the tree through an opening at the bottom. Once back at the cave, Ori offers the fruit to Naru, but gets no response. Naru, unfortunately, passed away while Ori was out. Saddened and with no reason to stay, Ori sets out into the desolate forest. Weakened and unable to push on, Ori collapses at one of the roots of the spirit tree. With the last of its power, the spirit tree revives Ori, and thus the prologue ends and our hero's journey begins. Eventually, our little guardian spirit comes across Sane, who is later revealed to be the spirit tree's light stolen by Kudo. She tasks Ori with regaining the three elements that keep Nibel in balance: water, wind, and warmth. And that's the story. You might be saying that every story is the same way, but that's not the case. It's the smaller plot points that really transcend the love that people have for these games. For example, Gumo, the last of the Gumon tribe, who were all wiped out during the cataclysm of the forest, steals the water element key. However, later returns it to Ori when Ori saves him from a rock slide. In Ori's debt, Gumo uses his clan's sacred treasure to revive Naru. This really makes you feel sympathy for Gumo. He used the last of everything he had to help out Ori. It almost makes you feel bad for Gumo. Perhaps the most heart-wrenching moment is when Kudo is going on a rampage, trying to kill Ori when she sees Naru protecting Ori. The reason Kudo stole the spirit tree's light is because when the tree was calling out to Ori, it let out a brilliant gleam of light which burned Kudo's chicks to death. To prevent that from happening to her last unhatched chick, she stole the light and hid it away. She sees Naru protecting Ori, and she knows the pain of losing children and can't happen to bear that happening to someone else. So in a race of desperation, Kudo takes Sine and returns her to the tree, causing an explosion of light, incinerating her and sacrificing herself to save Nibel. This is one of the reasons why many have a connection with these games. It's the emotions they make us feel. But before we get into that, Ori and the Will of the Wisps caps off the story and really illustrates the beauty and magic of Ori. The story of Will of the Wisps takes place immediately after the events of Blind Forest. Kudo's last egg hatched and a baby owl is born. Gumo, Naru, and Ori all raise and take care of this owl, collectively named Ku. All three spend their days raising Ku, teaching her the ways of life. Ori and Ku spend a lot of time playing together and become best friends. They finally decide to teach Ku to fly, but to everyone's sorrow, her wing is broken. Ori then remembers they still have the feather from Kudo. Ori rushes back to Ku to show her that her wing can be fixed. Without hesitation, they hurry to Gumo, where he fixes Ku's broken wing. In excitement, Ku takes flight with Ori atop her back, and they fly through the beautiful and majestic landscape of Nibel, and eventually end up in the forest of Niwen. They take in the wondrous scenery of Niwen when suddenly a storm breaks out, detaching the feather from Ku's wing and separating her from Ori, thus kickstarting our brilliant hero's adventure through Niwen to find Ku. The plot is similar to the first, but here Ori meets Qualok, a giant toad overlooking and protecting Inkwater Marsh. He tells Ori that Ku is in the Silent Woods, desolate graveyard of owls. However, Niwen's waters have been contaminated due to the wheels of the wellspring no longer functioning. Ori eventually makes it to the Silent Woods, where they reunite with Ku. Unbeknownst to them, Shriek, a deformed, vicious owl who was orphaned at birth and rejected by the rest of her kind because of how she looked, attacked Ori and ended up killing Ku. Ori makes it back to Qualok, where Qualok then gives Ori a wisp, the voice of the forest. Qualok tasks Ori with finding the rest of the wisps that were scattered when the willow spirit tree passed, and then sets the story in motion. Personally, I get more of an emotional response from Will of the Wisps. I feel it had a more tragic ending than the Blind Forest. The first game had a relatively happy ending, albeit Kudo sacrificing herself. She was satisfied with saving Nibel, knowing Ori, as well as Ku, would be safe. Will of the Wisps didn't end so heartwarmingly, however. Around the middle of the game, Qualok becomes corrupted with a parasite. He attacks Ori and we must fight him off. Eventually, Qualok expels the parasite and after some time defeats it. However, it's too late because he dies from his grievous wounds from the fight with Ori and the parasite. We've spent the majority of the game up to this point working with Qualok and building a connection with him, only to see him fighting for his life and failing right in front of us. All we can do is watch. We feel so helpless as there's nothing we can do. It's a tragic event that didn't have to happen. This game ends with rejoining all the wisps into one named Seer, the light of the willow tree. The willow tree tells Ori that his time is up to hold the light and that Ori must fuse with Seer and inherit the light. Ori joins with Seer and actually growing to become the new spirit tree of Niwen, reviving Ku and protecting Niwen. That's not so sad until you hear about Shriek's backstory. After her battle with Ori, she was badly wounded and flew back to the Silent Woods, where she died from her injuries under the petrified corpses of her parents. Shriek never had heartwarming moments. She lived her entire life full of hate and resentment. She was rejected by her kind because of how she looked. She never had anyone there to show her any support or love. She lived her whole life in isolation, wondering what was wrong with her and why no one wanted anything to do with her. This causes her hatred for the world and only gets stronger day after day. She gave it her all to take out Ori, the offspring of the thing she hated the most, and was still bested. This has to be the lowest point in her life. She was just beat by the very thing she hates the most. She goes back to the only place familiar to her, a deserted graveyard of her own kind. She lays under the protection of her parents' dead body, where she slowly passes away and finally gets some deserved rest and peace. This really hits you in the heart. It makes you feel immense sympathy for Shriek. I can relate to her being an outcast for a large part of my life. I know the pain she was feeling. It is not a desirable feeling to have. And that's the thing about these games. They make you feel a myriad of emotions through its abstract storytelling. This is why abstract storytelling works so well. It lets you feel how you want to feel when you want to feel it. Humans don't like being told what to do, and the abstract storytelling plays into that. With the story not telling you how to feel through dialogue, we can interpret the moments for ourselves and build a deeper connection. It evokes the natural emotions that are not forced. This is what makes this type of storytelling so powerful. It makes the emotions you feel during the story beats that much more genuine. What makes Ori such a special case is the way it invokes those emotions through its cinematic cutscenes and original orchestrated score. The soundtracks in these games are of nothing I've heard before. The plethora of instruments and sounds all blend together perfectly, like the sounds of birdsong and cricket chirps in a forest. The music of both games was composed by Gareth Coker and performed by the 72-piece Philharmonia Orchestra and 20-piece Pinewood Voices. Ori's music does an incredible job of invoking indescribable emotions during the story scenes. There is never a moment when you won't be feeling some sort of way. For example, the moment when Kudo sacrifices herself to save Nibel. The remarkable cinematics and the music stirred up this emotion of not wanting to let go. I knew what Kudo was doing. I didn't want it to happen. I didn't want to see her go. I grew attached to her throughout learning her backstory. I felt a sense of sadness and loss during Kudo's death. I ended up feeling the same way during Shriek's passing. Even during boss fights and escape sequences, the music is fully dynamic and goes all out, truly giving off a sense of desperation and willpower. You are desperately fighting to save the land from decay and corruption. The score really accentuates how you feel and deepens the emotions, leaving these moments not so easily forgotten. Even when simply exploring, the score can make you stop and truly appreciate the melodic, harmonious sounds you are hearing. Each area has a fitting track that perfectly captures the environment. The score of these games is something that cannot be described with words, only felt with the heart. I want you to listen to this and tell me what you feel. Now listen to this. What did you feel? That's the thing. Everyone is going to have a different answer, and many of you won't be able to describe it. Truly wonderful how the music makes you feel. Like you just heard, it's virtually the same song, but it makes you feel two different emotions based on how you listen to it. This is truly magical, but this isn't the only thing that makes up the magic of Ori. Another is the exploration. The game often tells you where to go, but not necessarily how to get there. The map is blacked out until you find a map fragment to highlight the rest of the map and shows you all of the paths. So most of the time you don't even have a clear path of where to go. You truly have to explore to find the right way. There is no rush to push the story along. You can truly take your time to explore the massive areas of Nibel and Niwen. You will often come across an area you cannot access yet. However, no area is inaccessible. You simply just need to find the ability that is needed to get there. Ori contains a lot of backtracking, but not the tedious fetch quests of other games. This backtracking is going back to those seemingly impossible to reach areas once you get a new ability. That then opens up into a whole new part of the world to explore that often leads to power-ups or other abilities. Nibel and Niwen are full of platforming puzzles and logic puzzles for you to solve, often rewarding with power-ups. No area or puzzle gets redundant. All the puzzles are engaging and fun to complete. The payoff is worth the struggle. It never gets boring exploring areas over and over again. Now, you've been seeing it the whole video. Perhaps the most lauded part of these games is the art style. The art style and environmental design of the Ori games are completely hyper-realistically hand-painted. It promotes a level of immersion that leaves you awestruck. Each area is carefully crafted to fit the environments designed for each area. The amount of detail put into these environments is truly mystical. The background and even the foreground are fully animated and designed. All these areas are believable, like these could be real-life places. The art style of these games is so realistic you can't help but stare and just say, whoa. The way Ori interacts with the environments looks so natural and dynamic. The grass moving in the direction of Ori when stepped on, or wooden beams dipping down when Ori is standing on them. Not a lot of games use this art style, which just makes Ori that much more unique. Ori isn't just a pair of games that look pretty, they're experiences. Experiences that make us feel a special type of way that's just indescribable. These games aim to tell a story with a message to an unforgettable experience. There's a reason so many laud these games for what they do. The story of Ori makes them feel a way they've never felt before. It helps give insight on the deeper meanings of life. The message of Ori and the Blind Forest is trying to convey is a deep emotional story about love and sacrifice and the hope that exists in us all. Kudo loved her chicks so much that she risked the state of Nibel to protect them. Once she saw Naru and Ori, she saw the motherly love she once gave to her children and knew how much it would hurt Naru to see Ori gone. She had a sense of hope wash over her, the hope that she could save everyone, Nibel, by sacrificing herself for a cause bigger than herself and her revenge. The message of Ori and the Will of the Wisps is how rejection and lack of love and support is unhealthy and can drive someone to commit some terrible acts. Shriek never had anyone there for her entire life. Over the years, she was building up hatred and jealousy for the world till she could take it no longer and acted out on those emotions. I highly recommend you go out and play these games. These are experiences I never thought would impact me so much. I've actually gained a deeper appreciation and clear view of the message. I've never been able to forget the way these experiences made me feel. I could replay them over and over and never get tired of it. I felt the exact same way the second time as I did on my initial playthrough. Don't be afraid to go out and experience new things. Life is all about experiences, and you can only grow from those experiences. Hopefully you've been moved, like I have, from the magic of Ori.